Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the El Calvario Podcast. I know we've taken a few weeks off here. It was just a bit of a time to kind of recoup, you could say, re-energize, and really just to have us get Pastor Suarez back.
I'm back finally. I'm home again.
Yes, he's just been really busy this last few months, really.
Yeah.
I think it's been the last time we saw him. But we'll talk to him in a bit here.
Mm-hmm.
First off, I just want to thank you all for watching. Thank you all for sharing, liking, following this content. We've actually heard quite a few people talk about how they're enjoying the podcast, which I guess I find surprising.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
we're still figuring it out. We're still kicking the wheels on the car and all that.
So thank you all for the comments, for all that stuff. How have you been, Pastor?
I've been good, just trying to keep up with everything.
Yeah.
I every year from January to the end of July is like a horrible grind. And it's usually around this time I start to feel it. When I start thinking about vacation in August, I know I'm hitting my wall already. And we still got our church anniversary explosion coming up.
Mm-hmm.
There's the National Spanish Conference I have to be at in June. We still have Illinois District Spanish Camp this year. We still got and then just your weekly church grind. Got different things going on, and yeah.
How far do you plan ahead?
I am working on the latter half of next year's calendar right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then for the most part, everything typically more or less sticks, right? Like what you have planned is pretty much like this is going to...
Yeah. You know, this is kind of funny. In our church, it's taken us a while to build the system.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of got it. And so a lot of our things that we do now are like plug and play, which is super boring to me. I like new. I like trying new stuff. But what we have works, so we're running with it. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully you get some energy, some sleep. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what you need to,
I'm
to
getting
help
old.
you.
I'm getting old. I just need time off, and I'll wake up again.
So before we enter into today's topic, this is just a little random, really. As I was getting ready for the podcast, I realized that I needed a haircut.
Yeah.
And it just curious, like how often do you get a haircut?
Like every 2 weeks, which
Every
is
2
funny.
weeks?
I was going to hold off, and I was in Elmhurst, and I just happened to be by my barber, and they were about to open in 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, I'll just go early. So I went this morning.
Okay. Yeah, I do not like getting haircuts.
Neither do I.
So I always try to push it off as much as I can, but I think it's time. So today we're actually going to be talking about a little bit going back to relationships, but really focusing on parents and children.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sure many people have read either books or have heard other seminars, podcasts, various subjects about that matter, just the relationship between a parent and a child.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to enter into that a little bit. And today we're really going to focus more towards the relationship between the child towards the parent.
Yeah.
And with a disclaimer here being that we're going to focus the age of that kid between like the teenagers and upward, you would say, right?
Yeah.
So I guess we can just start from there. What exactly would be, like where do you want to start with this?
Well, I mean, the thing is, this is a subject we don't talk enough about in Christian churches. However, we're called the children of God, sons and daughters of God, and all that. So maybe we need to know our part of this deal, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. We don't hit it enough. And usually just saying the child or the son of, your mind automatically invokes little kids, except we're all sons and daughters of somebody else. And so that relationship matters too, except part of the reason this type of relationship is confusing is because it does go through transitions. The parent has the relationship to the child. They're a baby, they're a kid still. That's almost all the parent to the kid, right? Mm-hmm. But as the kid grows up, becoming more mature, the relationship isn't just the parent coming to the child. Now the child needs to come to the parent. And there's, even with my son Jacob, before we couldn't have conversations, really. He would say some little kid nonsense. I'd nod my head, hey, that's cute, boy. Mm-hmm. He's able to talk now, and he's 8 years old. But we're able to hold a conversation now about, Dad, what about this? What do you think about this? Well, and I'm able to explain it, and we can talk back and forth about things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only going to grow as he gets older. So it's not just one-sided. It's going to continue to grow to actually be a relationship. And so we need to know our parts in that.
Okay. So what would you say is like one of the most fundamental parts of that?
Well, it's simply just understanding your parents are human. I read psychology books, certain aspects of psychology I believe in. However, this whole thing that every issue I have in my life is because my parents were failures or messed up or this, that, the other. Listen, while that might be true, my parents are human. All of our parents are human. They got their stuff. God uses both our parents' good and their bad to teach us.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean our parents were bad people or failures. They're human. And again, we forget we're not talking about our parents like they are human most of the time. No, they should have been there. They should have done this. They should have known that. How could they have known that?
Yeah.
Are you going to be perfect when you have kids? You need to understand they're human as well. And that's in the Bible, that understanding our parents' humanity. Genesis 9, I guess I'll read the verse. Genesis 9, this story gets often quoted and misquoted on popular memes on Facebook and stuff. Noah was a drunk and God still used him.
Mm-hmm.
God used him before the drunkenness, but that's beside the point, right? Whatever. And the Bible talks about, all right, Noah gets drunk. He gets naked. He's in a state of shame. And it says, and Ham, the father of Canaan, glanced and saw the nakedness of his father. Nakedness associated with shame or mistakes or weaknesses of his father, and told his two brothers outside. So he comes to tell his brothers, to mock his father, to judge his father, to criticize his father, throw stones at his father, essentially. And the Bible says 23, so Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon the shoulders of both and went backward. So they're trying not to see. They covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward. They did not see their father's nakedness. So the story can get butchered like many things in the Bible just because people don't think it through. Did they know he was drunk? Yes. Did they know he was naked? Yes. They chose not to focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so my parents are human, your parents are human, and so here's what happened. Many people, well, my dad's a liar. I don't need to listen to him at all. I don't need to pay attention to him at all. He doesn't matter. So his lies condemn him forever. What about your own lies?
Yeah.
And we do these things. We're judging our parents at a higher level than we even judge ourselves, which is anti-biblical in and of itself. It literally makes us hypocrites. And so we come across these things all the time instead of understanding, okay, my dad messed up this way. Maybe it's because he did go through certain experiences in his life that made him weak in that area. In turn, understanding usually breeds grace. So we should work on understanding our parents. But also, I hate that in my father. And that's not a bad impulse. But when I see my father, maybe he's angry. Maybe he throws insults. Maybe he's just absentee. I don't know. Whatever you see, I hate that in him. Proverbs, even though there's not a singular verse that says this, but Proverbs teaches us a wise man learns from the mistakes of others.
Yeah.
So God uses our parents, positive and negative, not just their good example, but even their bad example, to make us better.
Mm-hmm.
It is the law of inheritance. We're supposed to be higher, better, stronger, faster than our parents were. And so, in general, as children, we need to break this whole idea of, well, my parents messed up or my parents had a fight in their marriage. That means their whole marriage was garbage. No, it doesn't. It means they're human. And if you don't want to be judged at this other unattainable level, then you need to stop doing that with your parents, starting there. Yeah. So the verse, the seat that just left my head. Exodus 20, 10 Commandments. Honor your father and your mother.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible puts no qualification on it.
Yeah.
It never does. Whether he's good or he's bad, honor your father and mother. And again, this goes into the thing with Ham. You can focus on your parents' nakedness, on the fact, well, he got drunk, he this, that. Or you can remember the fact, the only reason I'm still breathing right now is because in spite of that humanity he has, he did build an ark for me and my family to escape. You can focus on what you want to focus on. But wherever you lay your eyes is also where you walk. And I've seen it 101 times play out. A young man specifically, it's usually a young man, who looks at his parents, fathers usually. My father's this, that, the other, and he's all these bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he keeps laying his eyes. Where you put your eyes is where you will walk. And eventually, the same kid who was throwing stones at his father for his father's sins and his father's problems, now he ends up in the same thing. It's not necessarily demonic as many people who do generational stuff. Some of that is true, but most of the time it's because you put your eyes on there so you start walking there. Or you can choose to focus on the fact, I should have asked permission. I'm not going to say the name because I didn't ask permission, but I know one person specifically. Their father was a horrible drunk, slapped around the whole family all the time. However, for whatever, as funny as this is, that same man was like hyper integrity, wouldn't even tell like a little white lie ever. And he worked hard to provide for the family. Child grew up, had a choice to make. What am I going to focus on? Him swearing and beating us, or the fact that he tried to have integrity, at least on his level, and he worked hard for the family? We all have those choices as children. What are we going to focus on in our parents? So wherever we focus is the example we'll end up following. And so we always need to think about those things. How am I judging my parents?
So let's say we are in that mindset of always looking at the negative of our parents. How do we work on understanding them better, of not just seeing that negative? Like what can one person do to kind of help alleviate that?
All right, so when you're a kid, when you're really little, parents have to be after you, and they do have to be after you. Sometimes I hear parents complain, I have to be after my kid. Yeah, you do, because he's at that age. Okay, but kid starts to grow up, becomes a teenager, starts getting into middle teens, late teens. They have more independence. They want more freedom, blah, blah, blah. However, they'll also complain, my dad doesn't understand me, doesn't talk to me, this or that, or, and they'll complain about their parents. Hold up. You can't have both. You can't push away and complain that they're not coming to you. After a while, your relationship changes, and it's not about the parents seeking, but you seeking them. And it's funny because we'll have people, and I'll always use Star Wars because just there's so much attached to it. But people can come and quote you what actor was in what part of Star Wars and why they had Wolfman masks in the first movie. They can tell you all these details, but where did your parents come from? And they don't know a stinking thing. Or if they do, they only know like little bits and pieces. Instead of just going and sitting down and listening. And this is specific to men, more men than women, men do talk. If you can sit a guy down, give him coffee and donuts or something, and ask, eventually he will start to talk and tell you long, probably boring stories, but in there you're getting to know the guy. Moms will talk too, usually a little easier, but to be honest, they'll sidetrack more. But nonetheless, you can learn about your parents if you're willing to, because they are talking, they are saying things. And the more you learn, the more you actually get to know, automatically it'll create more grace and understanding. And so, I'm trying to think of an example. You know, a lot of people might even know what I'm talking about with this one. Knew a kid, didn't understand why his dad hit him all the time. And I don't mean beat him, but spanked him, this, that, the other. Kid's grandmother comes from another country. And the grandmother's talking about how she would light brooms on fire and throw it at the kid, at her son. And about how one time he climbed up a tree, fell out, broke his arm, and she beat him with his broken arm. Light bulb goes off in the kid. My dad spanks me. He doesn't abuse me. And maybe, you know, he is definitely doing better than where he came from. This was the example he was given, and yet he doesn't treat me that way.
Yeah.
And automatically, just by that little bit of knowledge, you start to have more grace. We add in the factors, you know, I'm Hispanic, you're Hispanic. Our parents literally grew up in a different culture, different priorities, different goals.
Yeah.
Way less of the American culture. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying way less of the American culture's overthinking things. It was, for the most part, a more simplistic culture. You got married, you have kids, you work kind of whatever's available. You just eat it. None of this, are you happy at your job? No, we're not happy, but I'm not supposed to be happy at my job. I'm supposed to get a family and work to create a happy household. And so they have all this, and now they get this American kid, well, what are you going to do for work? I don't know, I'm thinking about, what am I passionate about? And they're like, what are you talking about, passionate? I'm driving a forklift. This has nothing to do with passion. It's about taking care of your family. And right there, we get into conflict. We just don't understand each other. And so you put in these factors and just learning about the culture, learning about your parents, learning, you know, I got another one. Love languages, you know, which aren't an exact science, but still, you know, people show affection through words or gifts or time or service or whatever, right? You know, I know a lot of dads, and I know I keep speaking specifically fathers, and that's just because I'm male and I have kids, but I know a lot of fathers who will not ever tell their son, good job, or I love you, or I'm proud of you. Never. They just won't do that. However, the kid's in trouble, the guy will help. And that's to him, I just told you I love you and I'm proud of you and all that stuff. And the kid's over here thinking, but you haven't said anything. He's like, no, I offered you this, and you said it doesn't matter. You want the words. And so we get into these conflicts instead of just trying to understand one another. Yeah.
So that's kind of going to go into what I was going to mention next, is just the communication aspect.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, I know for like with regular like relationships between couples, they always say just communicating, right? I'm guessing the same thing applies, as you just mentioned, between families too, right? It's just communicating and understanding what each person is trying to say.
Yeah. And so you can find this. You can find this in the spiritual life with your relationship with God. You can find it in your church life, in relationship with a spiritual, either your pastor or spiritual mentor, whatever you want to call that, whoever it is that you're a disciple of. And we are supposed to make disciples, and that's a little side note. And you'll find this in your family, okay? The relationship that one has with God at the very, very, very beginning, in your baby stages, is all on him. We love him because he loved us first. We're chosen in him before the foundation of the world. He came to seek and to save. He's after us. He's after us. He's after us. He's after us, right? And he gets us, and eventually we get saved. That works at the baby stages. However, eventually one needs to read your Bible on your own. Pulpit's not going to be enough. You know, eventually I need to pray beyond just a little bit of prayer when we have like corporate prayer at the church, whatever. Eventually I now need to seek him. Same thing with the parents. Kids always put all the responsibility of the relationship between the parents and the children on the parents, and it's not supposed to be that way. You're telling me now, okay, you're a mid to late teenager, young adult, now full-blown adult, and you're telling me you're responsible and this and that, and you're independent in every other area of your life, but here, now suddenly you can't pick up a phone and you can't text and you can't sit down. Well, I don't understand him. He says weird stuff, or I don't ever understand my mom. Who cares? Did they put up with your nonsense little kid talk when you were little? Didn't they?
Yeah.
You tell them stories, making up stories about your Legos or whatever, and they tried to listen or at least feigned like they were interested. Sit down and listen. Take a half hour. Do 30 minutes. Do 40 minutes. Something. Talk to your parents. Get to know them. Talk to them. These are things that we always put on them, but they do need to fall on us. You know, here, I looked it up. I wanted to read it in the Amplified version. Exodus 20, verse 12. All right. The King James, honor thy father and thy mother. Amplified says, regard, and then in parentheses, treat with honor, due obedience, and courtesy your father and your mother. And again, there's no qualifications there. So with our parents, you know, we're going to treat them with honor, due obedience, and courtesy. And the courtesy thing is a big one that we seem to jump over all the time. That's how we need to be treating our parents. And it's, again, that doesn't mean that my dad's perfect and I'm always going to, you know, especially if he's abusive or whatever. No, nobody's saying that. But at least show him a modicum of respect. You know, just at the very base level, you're alive because God decided to use that man and use that woman. So give them a little bit of respect in spite of their humanity. And then for their humanity, thank God for it because you just told me how not to live, God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So are there, because we're getting close on time, are there any other like common misconceptions you could say maybe?
Well, I mean, learning how to be a son is very important in your Christian life. So, actually, something came to my mind I do want to include. But as I live as a son, I bear my father's name. I should, and it is biblical in spite of certain cultural whatever, but you're supposed to receive some sort of inheritance from your parents.
Mm-hmm.
And now these things are given to project me or propel me to a higher state than the generation before. Wanting to be better or improved than your parents is not a bad thing. That isn't forgetting my roots. That isn't putting them down.
Yeah.
But they were blessed so that I could be blessed further so that in turn I can bless the next generation. We do need to try to improve without dishonoring. You know, and I'll hear people make, and I don't mean teasing. Teasing is whatever. Making a joke is something, but there's a difference between that and we get to full-blown mocking, making fun of our parents for not having real Tupperware, but always using the old Cool Whip bottle thing, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, there could be a joke there, but some people are like disgusted by where they came from. That's not biblical. However, you know, hopefully the next generation can afford the Tupperware. Mm-hmm. That's what we're after, is this improvement. So one thing I wanted to add is, and this is important in the human level and the spiritual level. So your parents are supposed to, every generation, do a little bit better. Every generation is helping the next generation improve slightly. And so let's just use a name. Let's pretend you were working in the same industry as your father. Mm-hmm. And, okay, Sanchez took it this far, and now you can get a job because of your dad's last name. And the rest of the world would say that's wrong. It's not wrong. Now, biblically, it's not wrong. Now, should you get the job based on your father's name and legacy, that means now he opened the door here. Now I got to work harder. Mm-hmm. So they can't say, well, it's just, he's David's boy, so he has the job. And no. He might have got in the door because he's David's boy, but he has earned his spot and gone further because he has put in the work. And this is important throughout all of life. And I'm just giving the example of working in industry, but this is all of life. Your parents work, they do this, whatever, to open a door for you to get in there. And thank God for the sacrifices of all the generations before. But now what am I going to do? Because I honor the sacrifices of my parents by working hard and putting in my effort too. And understanding, with a thankfulness in my heart, I've been able to reach heights that they could have never imagined because they sacrificed to get me even just a little bit higher than I would be on my own.
Mm-hmm.
These attitudes and mindsets are important as children or sons and daughters. And understanding this, again, now in the spiritual life. Jesus, the last name we get in baptism, the name of Jesus, that opens the door. He paid the price. He made the sacrifice so we can go higher and further and all those things. We do everything we do in our spiritual life with an attitude of thankfulness to our Heavenly Father who did these things.
Mm-hmm.
All of it's interconnected. And the more, I know we don't have enough time for that, but the more we can learn about being sons, the more we'll understand our spiritual life. And if I haven't made it clear, connect all the dots we talked about really quickly. Grow to a certain point, then you got to seek your parents. Yeah, that's Bible. You got to do that with God too. Get to a certain point, I need to study and learn more about my parents. Talk to my parents. That's Bible too. The more I learn about God, the more I'll have understanding. These things fall on us to do after a certain point. He sought us, now we seek him. Mm-hmm. And that's how it works, even with your parents.
A lot of good information there. A lot of good things that if you weren't paying attention, maybe listen to again. But just a lot of good information in today's episode. And I think we'll have to stop here. Thank you again, Pastor, for joining us.
I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, and then hopefully we'll have you back for a few more.
Yeah.
And thank you all for watching. Again, I just want to encourage you to continue to subscribe, continue to follow, like, share. Just share this podcast with people that you know, right? And let's keep spreading the word that we're here. Until next time, have a good one.